I'm your host, Julian Silva Jr., and today we're discussing a topic that's on everyone's mind, the flooding issues in our area. This wasn't just any flood, it's a wake-up call for the entire region, and one that's left us asking hard questions about the infrastructure, our preparedness, and the future in our communities. And in today's episode, we're bringing in some of the local leaders to help us answer some of these questions. Joining us are the mayors of Weslaco and Aqueducts, along with the respected meteorologist Tim Smith. Together, we'll discuss the critical issues of the drainage systems, the future of the Rio Grande Valley, and how the cities can work together to avoid another disaster like this. Welcome to the Delta Oaks Ranch Podcast.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us today here at Delta Oaks Podcast here at the ranch. Today, we have Mr. Smith from Channel 5 joining us. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And we have the mayor or representative from Weslaco.
Thank you.
And we have our representative mayor from the city of Aqueducts.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. So the main topics that we're probably going to discuss and many others that are kind of related to is going to be, of course, about the weather and the current flooding situations that we face. So we'd like to start with Weslaco.
Well, I'm going to blame it on Mr. Smith over here because he said only 2 to 3 inches of rain. We weren't expecting over 18 inches.
We'll talk.
But no, I mean, it was, it was a historic rainstorm, being that, we weren't expecting that. It was in Weslaco, it was over 18 inches in a matter of probably like 4 hours. And
it was massive.
It was a massive rainstorm, and but like I've said, we experienced it in 2018, and from 2018 to now, we've seen the progress that the city, is doing, as far as water being, in the streets. From 2018, we had 1,000 water rescues. This, fast forward to this rainstorm, we had 60. So that's a big difference right there, but I mean, again, it's myself, I was, since it started to right now, we're still, doing what we have to do to help these families. I know mayor's doing the same thing, it's just at that time, you just feel helpless. You want to do more, but you can, there's only so much you can do, but I know that all the cities here in the valley and, and everybody that was affected by these rainstorms, we're working together. Of course we're doing what we can for our own cities, but at the same time, we're communicating with one another to see how we can continue, getting the funding that we need to improve our drainage. I know that, we have a mayor alliance that we meet every quarterly, and we kind of bounce ideas off each other and see where we can help each other. So, it's more of, you do a lot more with numbers,
right?
And if all of us are together and asking these fundings from Austin and Washington, well, you hope that, they're going to listen, and so we've been doing a lot of that.
Okay. I have a question for you, Mr. Smith. On the situations like this, it was dramatic. There was a lot of rain. So how do you prepare? And as it's developing to warn people, right? I don't know how much you predicted as far as the rain inches when it first started, because I think it just developed super rapidly. So what were your challenges to get out there, warn people, hey, you know what? For example, it's not 4 inches, it's going to be 10 inches. Please get out of this area.
The challenges are unique with this one. They really were, because I kind of look back at it like the hurricane cone, the cone of uncertainty, if you will. And we were not in the center of that cone. We knew somebody between here and Houston was going to get 15 to 20 inches of rain.
Wow.
The center line was closer to Corpus Christi. So we really felt that is more likely where the core was going to go. But there was this cone that it could have been. And unfortunately for us, it stayed on the southern edge of that cone. It came right across us as the way it developed. And once we saw the whites of its eyes, if you will, it's like, oh crap, here we go. And then the reality set in. I don't think there's a city on the planet that could handle that kind of rainfall. When people say, well, the drainage needs to be, well, of course, it could always be improved. But you could put that kind of rain on any city in the country, and you're going to have problems like that, and maybe worse than what we had. I think our cities have gotten better and better and better. And Westlake, Ed Couch, and McAllen, and all these cities have gotten better about handling it. As far as once it started going, we're like now we're in a flash flood emergency. Which is a rare thing. We haven't seen very many of those. It's a relatively new terminology. Relatively new, and so we haven't had very many of those. And a flash flood emergency means it's life-threatening. Let's go now. And we lost lives in this one, as you know.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're just telling people, hey, don't go anywhere. Stay where you are. Do not, if you're someplace safe, stay there. Only go if you're about to be inundated. Then you've got to find a way out. But it was tough.
So what should we do now differently? Like, I see the frequency happening more often where we're having flooding more often everywhere. And I think it's, it's a good thing. We need to continue to develop, but I think the development is also affecting the proper drainage and what have you. So something has to be done. So what are you doing as far as the cities, and what can be done as far as forecasting? Maybe an extra 30 minutes, an hour protocols, making, hey, possibly massive flooding again. Please, these are the protocols, go to safety, etc.
Well, I think in our respect, in terms of the forecast side, I think we could have done a better job of explaining this cone of uncertainty in this case, comparing it to a hurricane, because I think that is a good way to look at it. If you're in that cone, you're in danger. We're not the center, but we're in it, so we're in danger. Where I don't think we expressed that well. So we need to do a better job of that, saying, it's going to happen somewhere. It could be here, so you got to prepare as if it will be, just like you're preparing for a hurricane.
Right. So for us, we've been preparing for hurricane season.
Sure.
I mean, that's a year round. So a lot of this has been learning opportunities for us too, enacting our emergency plans, taking the tap of our resources, different municipalities. But through time, I've been married since 2016. So I even have a little bit of PTSD when it starts to rain, reflecting to when we're growing up, it would just rain. So now, like Julian is saying, these are starting to become with added more frequent and additional challenges, winds, coverage valley-wide versus isolated areas. So as the county and the state are improving our infrastructure for drainage, I know that recently Hidalgo County passed several millions of dollars for improvement, and those take time. But you're seeing, at least I am seeing, how 1 inch of rain used to flood our city. So now with time, of course, you could see the water elevate, but it went down. It went down relatively quick. So unfortunately, this event was valley-wide. We are at a lower to the sea level. So now all the drainage from the west coming to the east. And now we're not just working with Hidalgo County. We need to also take in mind Willacy County and Cameron County, that those two were being affected. And then there's rules, right, as to how the water is going to drain. And I think we need a little bit more of that, where people understand that sometimes it's out of our control. I mean, for one, Mother Nature, I mean, you'll never, you're not going to win. You're not going to win, right? So we can predict, we can anticipate, but things happen. I remember 2017 when the storm just right on top of Aqueducts. It just started to rain and rain and rain and rain. Something we hadn't seen, I don't know how many years, where two fronts collided at the same time, right on top of us, right? So, and since then, I mean, you're seeing how things have improved, but it's going to take time. One of the things that others can help us, and Mary can attest, our citizens can also help us with illegal dumping. There's a lot of trash, and there's a lot of trash in our lines.
I mean, clean it up,
and
we can all participate in that.
We can see tires, we can see debris. That the system functions well, except there's artificial stuff that's clogging the system, right? So we all can do part. in this. The Fed, the states, locally, everybody can help us minimize some of this manage.
Yeah, and that's one thing, Mayor, that I know I voice to our constituents and stuff. It's like, hey, help out. When you're cutting your yard, don't blow the the grass and the leaves into your inlets. What do you?
But how do we tell them, mayors? I mean,
Well,
it's common sense.
Through social media. We do it through social media. We do it through our podcast. We try to inform them as much as we can, on the legal dumping and all the stuff that will affect our drainage system. And I hate to say it, but it is what it is, and I keep it real.
Yeah.
They're really big at criticizing all of us. Oh, what are you doing? You haven't done your drainage, blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of like, wait, we are, but you guys got to help as well.
Yes.
We are this is your city. Like in Wasuco, hey, this is your city. Help, with the illegal dumping.
This is your community.
Yeah, we got to take care of it all together.
We got to care a lot more.
We got to take care of it all together. And it's just, it's more the educating, informing them, keeping them, letting them know, what they can do better and what we can do better as well. And that's one way that we can fix the problem. I know I got to give credit where credit's due. Commissioner Fuentes, our county commissioner, has done an amazing job with all the drainage improvements. And I believe they got, what was it, Mayor, like 70 million or something for the precinct or the county or something like that. And you can see the improvements, in one of our subdivisions, Las Brisas subdivision here in Wasuco, in 2018, there was like 4 feet of water. This rainstorm, there was no house that was affected.
Great.
And that's due to all the improvements that, Commissioner Fuentes had implemented in that area, So, I mean, it's all a team effort. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. It's a team effort, and we got to do this together. Like Mayor was saying, the flow, this time around, it hit valley-wide, right? So by Friday, we were getting McAllen and Far and all their water over here. There was some areas that weren't flooded, but on Saturday, they had some water in the streets because of the backflow.
Right.
Because now we got to wait for, like Mayor was saying, for Cameron to drain out before we continue releasing that water in that direction. So it's kind of a bad thing being, there's benefits to being in the Mid-Valley, and then there's not. And the ones that's not, it's that. Because we're stuck, and it just so happens that those the water gates are, that's not controlled by any of us.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned the podcast, Mayor, because one of the things that that I think it's changing the paradigm is the first thing that I watch, I'll go to Channel 5, right? The weather.
Thank you.
However, everybody's streaming nowadays. Mm-hmm. So, I don't usually watch regular Channel 5, I watch, ABC or what have you, or any other channel, right? But when it comes to the weather, you're that important. I think a lot of people, that's the main deal, the weather. Like right away, that's my opinion. Everybody will go to the local channel, Channel 5. And this is where you come in, Mr. Smith. And that's why, thank you for being here today, is just to inform you that you're still very, very important. And, everybody's watching. What do we do? How many inches do you think we're going to get? Is it coming this way and all that,
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think that, times are changing. It's like you say, there's no more appointment viewing. People don't say, oh, it's 6 o'clock. I got to get in front of the TV to watch the news. It's 10 o'clock. I have to sit down and watch the news. People my age, I'm looking at nobody else's my age in here. People my age, still do that. I still, even on the weekend, it's 10 o'clock. I better flip the news on, find out what happened today. But anybody younger than me, doesn't do that anymore. You're now, it's on your phone, it's on
exactly
wherever. And that's why, when we're doing severe weather coverage, we not only do it on television, we want people to go there, of course, because that's where, that's where the advertisers are. But also we do it on Facebook. We stream everything. And we did, I don't know, probably 18 hours of streaming coverage during this event. And it was, a couple of very long nights. You just keep going and taking the information that the mayors that you guys give us and all the cities give us and TxDOT gives us. And I remember at one point, when you get into long form coverage, you do a lot of weird things. You go back to the Hurricane Hannah geography discussion about knowing where you live on a map,
Yes.
it went viral, and that was not intended. It just, somebody clipped it and it went viral. But in this one, I've got a brand new weather computers just recently, still trying to figure out how to use them. Our first effort at severe weather.
Wow.
And I want to draw how the drainage system works. I want to draw it on TV, and I want to show how your house is built here, and then the street is a little lower, hopefully, so the water runs off into the street. So the street is part of the drainage system. Then from there, it goes into the drains, and from there it goes underground into the storm sewer. From there it goes into the ditches, into the floodway, whatever. And I was trying to draw all that. By the time I was done, it was a bunch of circles and arrows and lines. Whether we got the point across, I don't know. But that we can do in the long form coverage on Facebook. We don't generally do that on TV. We don't have that kind of time. But on Facebook, we do.
Yeah.
And that's great that you guys are doing that, because I know that, after these events, our commission and staff are going to start having workshops before every city meeting until we get it all put together. And that's what I want to do. What I want to do is, we sit in these commission meetings and they present to us and they use these terminologies, right? These words that, most people wouldn't understand.
Right.
And who are our bosses? Our bosses are the people that elect us, which is our citizens. So we need to, put it in a layman's term to where anybody can understand it, right? Because I even tell them, hey, man, you got to Adrian it down for me, because I tell them, like, hey, man, draw me in crayons and all that stuff. I'm a visual person. So what we're doing is, like, for this drainage improvement that we just passed, I had our tech team kind of put it all together like that. These are the cement concrete boxes we're going to put. And then we put a little, like a animated figure that shows how big they are. And then it says, okay, this is the way it's going to drain out to where we're going to go to a RDF, and I told our guys, I need to put that so they can understand what we're voting on and what this drainage improvement's going to do, because people are very visual people.
Well, not only that, Mayor, I think, Mr. Smith, you had an incident in the past where common sense, some things people just they're not privy to it, like locations and so forth, something that you would assume people would. But we shouldn't, take, for granted that they do. So I understand. I'm from here. This is my community. I get it. So I think that is a good idea, that sometimes, we have to kind of really explain things.
Yeah, no, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like, with me, it's just that I want people to understand the way city government works. I want them to understand, like, okay, this is our property tax and this is how much we collect. And then look at, this is our budget. So people can better be informed of how everything works.
But like, even locations, I'm going to break it down. For when you mention Las Brisas, that maybe not everybody in West Coast, where's Las Brisas?
Oh, yeah.
You see something like that. And he's saying, well, is that west, north, south? And when you say directions, unfortunately, people, I don't even know where north is. It's unfortunate.
Sad but true.
It's unfortunate, and it's kind of unfortunate. But so you kind of have to maybe use landmarks to actually explain, okay, Las Brisas is by, I don't know, Walmart.
DPS. That DPS. Into your
and then look at, oh, okay, I get it, And, but yeah, I think that's a unique challenge for our communities here.
I guess we got to go back old school, like our grandfathers, right? Like, mira, vas a llegar, you're going to hit that yellow truck that's parked in the corner. Take a right, and then there's going to be a tree over there. Take a left. You're right there.
It's funny, but it's very unfortunate, and I hope it does change with time. And it goes back to our education system here in the Valley, but that's for another topic, another day, right? But I think that helps when we're prepping our general public out here that, hey, it's going to flood in this general area where the DPS office is, or wherever, maybe even going that far. Is it kind of silly? Maybe, but need it just for safety? Yeah, let them know,
Going back to Tim's point, so we're in 2025. So ironically, the day the storm hit us, we're at a conference at the Island, Urban County Conference. So the topic was AI, a lot of AI.
Yeah.
So the models, I'm pretty sure, can be fed to AI. We can start seeing systems as to how they work, figuring out this little vein is clogged, or we just need to adhere to maximize it. I know a lot of cities were we're using air footage drones to take wide shots of what was going on, so we can take back and learn from this. And I was also sharing with the group where at the training itself, they were talking as to how the valley was created and this industrialized. The focus was more on agriculture versus drainage. So now from the start, we were behind. So now 2025, trying to make all those improvements, of course, it's going to take more money, more time, but together and then embracing the technology, the different things that are out there. I'm pretty sure we can do this and for sure save properties and save lives along the way.
Well, 1925, we wanted the water, keep it, know, right. We want it for all the farms, for all the agriculture and everything else. And now it's all paved over. There's still some farms, but not like it used to be. So you're right. While we desperately could have used a rain like, and we used it. We're still in a drought, which is amazing to me. We're still abnormally dry, but 100 years ago, that water would have just soaked in and would have been great. Everybody would have loved it. But now it's in your backyard. It's not so great anymore.
There's more cement than there is.
And the thing we need to consider, gentlemen, it's not going to stop.
No.
But this it's not going to stop. It's going to continue. So I feel, in my opinion, that we need to make proper planning. Who do we speak to do this in regards to a 50-year plan, a 100-year plan? I believe one of the biggest hurricanes that we had was Hurricane Beulah.
1967, yep.
Yes, sir. 1967. And that's when they did the floodway. Well, how many years ago was that?
Hey, the floodway was here before that, and it failed in 1967. It didn't do its job. The way you guys know the way it's built, it was supposed to divert 2/3 of the water into the North Floodway, 1/3 into the Arroyo Colorado. And there was a weir, rather. It was a weir, and that weir failed. And the weir is such that 1/3 of the floodway, had to get up to a certain height before it would go into the arroyo. Really? Otherwise, it went around into the North Floodway. And that weir failed. And there are a lot of stories about why that weir failed. There's still people in Harlingen that insist that people in Mercedes went out and blew it up so that the water wouldn't flood Mercedes. It would go to Harlingen instead. Our Army Corps of Engineers says that didn't happen. It just failed. It was not designed well, and it failed. So more water went into Harlingen than into the North Floodway. So it existed, but it's been rebuilt. Now there's a divisor dike there. If you're going down 1015 toward Progresso, you see that at the third levee that's right in the middle of the floodway that divides the water now. And
so what is your opinion, Mr. Smith, of having another hurricane like Beulah, a Category 5? Was that a Category 5?
Well, there's a lot of debate about that even now. Technically, it was a 3, but there were winds in it that were up to Category 5 strength, but it officially categorized as a 3. But it wasn't the category. It was the length of time it spent over South Texas was the problem, because it came right up over the mouth of the Rio Grande, kind of went up to Falfurrias, made a U-turn, went down to Monterey. And so it spent, because I think the size of it, that whole thing was over South Texas for about 3 days, and then ended up in Monterey, which water in Monterey ends up in the Rio Grande too. So that combination of the length of time it spent here gave us 30, 40 inches of rain over a 3 or 4 day period. And Monterey got 30, 40 inches of rain. And all that water comes down, the Rio San Juan, the Rio Salado, all those rivers that feed into the Rio Grande south of Falcon. Salado feeds into Falcon, but south of that, they come in south of Falcon. So we can't do much about it. Oh, there you go. There's Beulah. Yep. So you see that U-turn right up. Maybe Alice. We'll go with Alice. So you can see how it spent so much time over South Texas. Peak wind gust was 161. The sustained winds were in the 135 to 140 neighborhood with that. So could we handle 30 to 40? It would be bad again.
Yes.
Things have changed. Obviously, drainage is 1,000 times better than it was in 1967. Well, we probably have 1,000 times more concrete than we had in 1967, so it needs to be better. We'll still have serious problems with a storm like that. Whether to be Beulah again, it's hard to say.
So in your professional opinion, can you gauge, do you think perhaps we could see one in a year, 3 years, 5 years?
We could have one in June.
Okay.
I mean, there's this season's expected to be slightly above average, but that means nothing. That's the Atlantic Basin as a whole. Whether we see anything or not, we don't know, if we have to plan for it. But that's, look at that. That's, Raymondville. Yeah. And the problem, and I remember this from when I first got here, early 80s, probably 1982. There was a flood event in Hidalgo County, and the drainage wasn't, 43 years ago what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And, flooded hard in Hidalgo County. And then about 3 days later, I was doing a live shot in our newscast in Lyford, in water that was waist deep. But it was 3 days later. The rain was in Hidalgo County. The floodway didn't, things just didn't work right. So the water just goes downhill, and the slope of the valley is probably less than the slope of this table right now.
Wow.
A foot a mile was not very much.
Yeah.
And so it all just kind of flowed downhill into Lyford, into Sebastian. And I remember walking down Business 77 in waist deep water.
Okay.
That hopefully, it's still happening, but not like that. And this, hopefully we won't see again, hopefully.
So what kind of alerts would you start giving out once you suspect something like that? So like how much ahead of a time?
Well, if we look at Harvey, for example, Hurricane Harvey that went into the Houston area, the forecast for that were 50 to 60 inches of rain. And I'm on television saying 50 to, and not believing what I'm saying. You just can't believe you're saying this, because I've never said that on TV before. There's going to be 50 to 60 inches of rain. And it came true.
Yeah.
And the models are that good now that, again, and in this last instance here, they had the right idea, just the wrong location. In Harvey, they had the right location. And not everybody gets 60 inches, but somebody does. And you don't want to be that person,
Yeah.
No.
So do you feel pretty confident with the new technology that you have now in place?
We're better than we were 5 years ago, let alone 15, 20, 30 years ago. We've come a long way.
In 5 years?
Oh, yeah. Technology, modeling technology has changed dramatically. AI is becoming part of it now. There's AI models on everything. We've got one of the models we run, multiple times per day is the European model. Now there's a European AI model. It's AI influenced. And now AI's got learning to do. Just like if you do something on ChatGPT, draw a picture on ChatGPT, the person will only have 3 fingers. There's little issues with it. And the same kind of thing with computer models for using AI for forecasting. There's problems.
Okay.
But it's getting better every single day. Every day.
Is this something in the future that we can be looking forward to, that perhaps you're going to bring to your weather forecast, like a version of AI to the public?
I think so. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think you're seeing a little bit of it now, kind of unknowingly. It's in there. We're not, it's not quite overt yet. It's not openly out there, but it's in the models now. But just a complete AI model's not there yet.
Do you, looking at that map, Mr. Smith, which one would you say the valley, if there is such a thing, is the most prone to flooding, and which one is not? Is there such a thing? Looking at that map, pretty much the whole the valley is completely flat.
I think we're all prone. Depends on where the rain falls. This time, just outside of Harlingen, Valparaiso, we had 25 inches of rain in less than 2 days, and that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
So here, there's nothing like, remember that saying, head to the mountains or something, head to the hills or something for safety. Yeah. Nothing like that here, huh?
Not really. I mean, the whole thing, your neighborhood, what floods and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And we just finished a big conference on the island as well. The week after your conference, I had a conference out there about tropical weather. And there's a guy that comes to these. His name is Dr. Hal Needham. We call him Hurricane Hal. And he studied storm surge. He studied flooding and things like that. Spent a lot of time on it. And, he says what happens is he goes into an area that's just flooded, whether it be from a hurricane or whatever, and talks to the people. And they say, well, I've lived here 25 years and it's never flooded. And this time it did. What happened? Why was it different? He goes, well, did you live here in the big flood of 1962? Well, no, I wasn't here yet. Well, how about the flood in 1958? No, I wasn't here yet. You've only been here 25 years. There have been floods. I've only been here 25 years. Your sample size is pretty small compared to history, and the same thing here. If you haven't flooded, you probably will at some point, and it's just, if 25 inches of rain falls on your house, you're probably going to flood.
What was the biggest take that the general public could take from you from that conference? If you could, maybe the 2 biggest points that you would be willing to share with us.
Oh, that's a good question.
Conference.
Yeah, it was the National Tropical Weather Conference. We've got, Cantori was here, and Josh Morgan, who's a hurricane chaser, was here, but Dr. Howell, all these, and Phil Klotzbach, who's from Colorado State, who predicts how many storms there are going to be, the pioneer. He does that forecast here on South Padre. I think the biggest thing is just that just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it's not going to happen this time. And, history is a great teacher, but history is also a lousy teacher, because you base your decisions on what has happened to you. If look at South Padre Island right now, there's only a couple thousand people who live there permanently, but on this week, Holy Week, there's 50,000 people out there. Yeah. And, but if a storm is coming and people say, well, I've lived here since 1978, we never had a problem. Well, but were you here in Beulah in 67? Were you here in the 1933 storm? Were you here in this storm? So you're going to react the way your experience tells you. You weren't here for the last big storm. You don't really know what's going to happen. So you react based on your experience, which isn't adequate. It's just not. And the same thing in Westlake, the same thing in Ed Couch. You react based on your experience. If your house is flooded 4 times, you know it's going to flood again.
Right.
You know, and unless Les Brisas, you know they've made a difference. So it's based on your experience, and experience is not a good teacher in that respect.
And you will react. You will react.
So, Westlake and Ed Couch, what are you guys going to do on the next Beulah? What are you going to do?
I mean, we just have to continue improving in our drainage, system. I mean, it's like you say, Hurricane Beulah. There's only so much you can do. I know we were discussing. Mr. Smith mentioned, no matter how good your drainage system is, when you get that amount of rain, there's nothing you can do about it. Just pretty much prepare, get people evacuated. Have people, out of their houses,
So how are you prepared? So, okay, let's fragment it. I understand the drainage. You can only drain so much water, but what else can you do? I mean, do you start preparing for water, food, shelter to take them to better places? And then, a Beulah, if that happened again, if we had something like Katrina here, you're probably not even going to be able to bring in any type of supplies because all the roads are going to be flooded. What are the contingency plans? Are there any? And if there's not, why isn't it happening? Who do we talk to organize this for the next big storm?
So we're always anticipating. I mean, we know our weaknesses, especially the areas that are prone to flood or susceptible to anything. So we'll start with our shelters. We start with our partners. This is what we're going to need. Let's start. Let's anticipate. Let's anticipate what based on the forecast. This is probably what's going to look like. We start talking to our neighbors. Can we send some of our residents over there if we're full? Can we go over here? Unfortunately, we have to plan that step, the dire step. Like we're in trouble because of whatever's going on. Now my residents are counting us. We activate our fire department. We have our trucks that we're gonna go in there and take out. There was a storm. I forgot which one. It was probably 1819. 10 minutes into it, we had to evacuate people from their homes, and we were driving them to Westlake. 10 minutes into the event. I think it was a hurricane. The last hurricane that we had.
Dolly or Hannah?
Yeah,
2020. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Hannah. Right. Hannah was barely peeking inside. We had to evacuate some people. A house, their walls fell.
And how do you know, Mayor, that they start calling you, or you just start looking for them? Or
they start calling us. We know that some lines are going to go down. We start using landlines. We start using different ways for residents to notify us through Facebook, through landlines, through one year we did during COVID. We had to do neighborhood, almost like a neighborhood time crime watch type of deal. So like everybody, let's take care of each other because we knew that some systems were down. So make contact with so and so, and then so and so can call us so we can activate emergency management to them. So it's anticipating, a lot of anticipating. While all this stuff is being upgraded, we know that life is happening fast, right? But we're always anticipating and making sure that we know how to react and
well, the city and the municipality, I understand, has only so much resources, right? And capacity. So at what point does the city reach out to the county? And does the county, what responsibilities does it have?
In a situation like that, we reach out straight to the governor.
Yeah. Okay. Can you expand on
on Thursday, as soon as this rainstorm came, I signed off on our emergency, like a state of emergency type of deal, and it was like a declaration of emergency. Mm-hmm. We signed off right away. So that paper goes straight to the governor's desk. Let them know, hey, there's get ready. We're in a disaster, and then the next day, I declared it an emergency, disaster, right? Governor starts making his calls and we start being able to get different, whatever we need as far as trucks, all sorts of stuff. We're able to reach out to the county, reach out to state, reach out to different people so that we can, get what we need to, get done, So, but I think, even that Friday, I had a joint press conference, with our county commissioner. We had Raul Cecin and, that participated. It was myself, the City Donna, City Mercedes, City Couch. So we kind of all came together and like, hey, we're, this is what was going on. And each individual spoke about their different cities and what they're planning to do. And, but yeah, I mean, it's, you reach out to you reach out to the different people that can provide you with different resources.
They're supposed to respond to you, Mayor. How fast?
It all depends on them.
Really?
Yeah. It all depends on them.
So there's no established protocol. Hey, if the community needs you, please respond within at least an hour to notify you. These are the things that we need to do.
I mean, there's not a specific like, I need to get back to you in an hour, right? But we start already in our emergency, mode. We opened up our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, and we start making these phone calls, and we start getting the resources that we need. And just hoping that the governor signs off.
Yeah.
I know County Judge Cortez the next day signed off as well. So once he signs off, hey, it's all boots on ground.
So how long did they take to respond to you guys this time?
They're quick though. The problem is, especially in flooding. I mean, you'll vacuum the water, but where do you take it to? I mean, where do you start pumping water to? We get our pumps ready. But where am I going to throw that water to? If we're all in the same boat, we're all flooded at the same time. I'm waiting for Willisy to give me the green light or Cameron so they can start opening, the gates, right? So a lot of the times it's time, right? All we need is time. Sewer systems start backing up. They start calling. So what's the plan? Just give me time. I just need the water to settle, and then everything will start working.
You've seen that meme of the guy pumping water over the chain link fence onto the other side of the chain link fence. It just doesn't do a whole lot of good because the same thing's happening. They're pumping out too. So you just kind of wait your turn, I guess. Yeah.
So perhaps conversation should be opened up county-wide to perhaps making some sort of studies, feasibility studies, as far as what can be done. Like I've seen other communities around the world, everywhere. We're not unique. There's flooding everywhere in the world. Even New Orleans, right after Katrina, started making massive canals and this and that. And like even in Los Angeles, they have the aqueducts, right? And perhaps be conducting a study of how much money are we losing every year, every time that we have a flood or a hurricane, add it up, compared to how much the feasibility would cost to go ahead and bring in humongous aqueducts into the valley, or look into the feasibility. If not that, perhaps another answer or solution, and start aiming towards that goal.
Getting the legislature to fund that would be terrific. Getting them to understand that. We talked about why isn't there an aqueduct to take all that water back up to Falcon? Mm-hmm. Of course, it's uphill 300 feet from here to Falcon. So how do you get it up? But you could pump it up,
Mm-hmm.
Instead of losing all that water, why not? But it's just money, and money is the challenge, as you guys know. It's just getting them to approve it and spending it.
Yes, sir. I think that it needs more attention. And if we all came together as one big community to open up that conversation, let's say, this is my opinion, right? Let's say it cost X amount of dollars. We'll break it up in 10 years and pay it. 20 years. So it would be a 50-year plan or a 100-year plan.
And there is conversations out there on what we can do to improve and stuff, but it's easier said than done.
I understand.
And we have to go out there with our state legislators and kind of push them. And then they can only do so much because, the other one, they got to convince everyone else. And it's like, well, that's not even my community. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, we got to rattle that cage. We really got to rattle that. I think it's my opinion. I really feel it's important. A lot of things are important, but at least to start the conversation.
No, and I think that conversation had started back in 2018. When all the floods when we had that first major flood. So when it comes to flooding and when it comes to those conversations, I think that it started back then, and they haven't slowed down. Because like Mayor said, it's hurricane season year round for us. Because one storm out of nowhere can come and flood us up like it did this one, you know?
Yep. So now there's a reclamation project going on in La Villa. So part of the runoff is going there, and with hopes of it becoming water. We have different detention ponds in strategic areas, but in going through, I was passing through Wasaco the other day, and I saw a big pond. That equals land, right? That equals land that is starting to become scarce here in the valley, right? Valuable. So I'm with Julian. I mean, we are in 2025. There's different ways of doing these things now that shouldn't be that costly anymore. Trying to figure out with different systems how to reclaim, how to divert water to different areas. We're right next to the ocean, right? Compared to other cities where they can, or other states that they can dump to other sites. I dump my water to the ocean, right? So I'm at sea level. So sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, right? So yes, Army Corps, different engineers are always looking into the valley, because we are different than a lot of places regionally. I mean, in the United States. So, but something should be done and will be done. But it just takes time. It just takes months.
Well, Mayor, just considered, and let's open up those conversations.
You need to be able to reuse that water and keep that water. One thing that, being in the valley, right, is that we're going to start attracting a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of movement in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, we're going to be able to attract, these manufacturing companies, these industrial companies, the distribution companies, big companies, right?
SpaceX.
I mean, starting with SpaceX.
Yeah, that's great.
What's the one thing that they're going to need? Water.
Infrastructure, yeah.
So, we like all that water. If we could have stored that water, I mean, and try to make it reusable water, I mean, it'd be great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that we need to do, and again, like I've, talked to the mayors, like the Mid Valley, especially. I mean, we're in a gold mine because we're in the center. We're in the center of the valley, right? And with everything going around the world, with the tariffs and all that stuff, well, what a better place to come and bring your manufacturing company, but here in the valley.
So, Mayor, things like this, the floods, how does it affect the economy to the cities?
Well, I mean, how does it affect it? I mean,
the damages, the repairs.
Yeah,
does it?
Well, and then you got to deal with FEMA and TDM, and they got to go do those assessments to all these homes, and yet we're having to pump in all this money, right? Doing what we have to do, but we have to meet a threshold so we can get reimbursed. And if we don't meet that threshold, well, that's just money that came out of our budgets and that we're not going to get reimbursed.
And then even if you meet it, sometimes that funding is not available anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a promise. Okay, start keeping tabs of all the expenses. I have to do it anyways, right? So we keep tabs, and then expecting or praying for some relief at the end. It never happens. Not since I've been here. Since 2017, 16, of all the different emergency events, declarations or no declarations, that federal relief has never come back to us. Right. So that's important for us too, that feds need to start realizing and understanding who we are, and us getting
those thresholds are tough to reach. Yeah. They really are. And that's why they're pushing so hard on TV, saying, if you had damage, report it, report it, because all that has to go in there. If we don't reach that threshold, you get nothing, and it's just sad.
And it does affect, smaller cities like us, because our budgets, we have budgets, and we don't have the big budgets. We're not blessed with like the McAllens and the Edinburghs and the Bronzeville that they have an extremely healthy budget, because, hey, they got sales tax. They got a lot of sales tax. They got a lot of property tax. Us, well, hey, we're
challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging for us. So for Mayor and I, it's kind of like, man, we're really relying on this threshold so we can get some type of reimbursement back.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Mayor said.
Well, I mean, it's my suggestion to get our community. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, to make them aware of the simplest thing. Just keep your yard clean, your ditch clean, your trash, all that common sense things. And and participate and help out in what you can. We're fortunate enough here in the ranch. We have an industrial pump that we lend out to our community, to Edcouch, to help with the flooding. And we went out there and lend it out to help out, because there was people out there. I saw them, and I live here. This is my community, and we put our pump out there to help out. Anything and everything that you can to help out, and that's why I wanted to open up. That's some of the flooding. You want to expand on that, Mayor?
Yeah. So for us, what's going to help us alleviate that is actual development, right? So once those lands are developed, we have all the lines underground, and we figure out where we're going to throw. It's not like Westaco where they're running out of land or places to develop. We have a lot of undeveloped areas that's going to indirectly help us, especially with those situations where I live on the last street before it breaks into else or county property. So my street is unfinished, especially in the drainage piece, right? So finishing off those areas will help alleviate things like these.
Yeah, so that was some of the flooding that we wanted to help out, and we brought out a pump to pump all that water out to help out the city of Edcouch. That was our.
That was open land.
That's open land. So that's a land that we're trying to annex. A lot of it is technically county right now, but it's in our ETJ that we can annex it and start. So yes, we're looking for partners to develop, especially we're on 1015, the original NAFTA site road when President President Gore was here, right? So we're in a prime location. I mean, I agree with Mayor where we're at a gold mine where definitely we can attract. We're right next to Highway 77, 281. You pick a spot. I mean, you're right there. We're away from all the major traffic like McAllen, Brownsville. They're close enough to do anything you want. But that indirectly will help us alleviate a lot of these things where flooding is occurring. The development will help us out.
Yeah, and that's just down about less than a mile here from our ranch here. So my concern was not only the safety, but the health issues. Look at all those houses. Mm-hmm. Those kids are going to maybe get bit by mosquitoes, get sick. So many possibilities. So somebody's got to step up and help out and open up these conversations.
I thought that was a lake or a canal or something, man. Wow. Levels of water.
You see the pump right up there?
Yeah.
Trying to do its best, trying to help out. But look at all the trash, though, on that ditch that needs to be cleaned out, right? On the right-hand side. But, yeah.
So like Julian was saying, so the following day, Red Cross was here, Salvation Army was here. So aftermath, I mean, there's always help. But now trying to avoid that, avoid the destruction and thinking of different ways of how to making sure that these don't recur again, right? So a lot of it was going to be development. A lot of it is going to be thinking outside the box as to how can we help support low-lying areas like ours in Westaco and most of the Mid-Valley. Taking suggestions from the weather experts, like this is what it's going to start looking from now on, right? I remember growing up, it would rain and just rain, right? So now it rains with tornadoes, with high winds, with a whole bunch of other stuff that is part of.
It's more dramatic.
It's more dramatic. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Mayor, you were mentioning that the discussion was opened up in 2018-ish. You said. Mm. Where did that leave off? Where's it at?
I wasn't there in 2018.
Oh, you mean the city or county-wise?
I think it started
countywide. There was a bond election. So we are being taxed more to create more detention ponds, more infrastructure to help Hidalgo countywide to minimize this type of flooding.
So in your opinion, who could we perhaps speak with to open up conversation for consideration of hiring a feasibility study from the Corps of Engineers or someone in a massive scale? How does that start? Could you suggest
I mean,
something?
I think you'd go and you start talking to your first our locals, which is us mayors, getting together, and then we involve our county judge and our precinct 1 commissioner, and then from there you go to our our state senator. You know what I mean? Either Chuy Hinojosa or Adam Hinojosa, and they can take part in the discussions, and then you go to your state reps, and you just started. You're going from the very bottom, and we're going to just creep up, keep going and moving and seeing who we can talk to.
And there is a plan in place. There is a strategic plan in place as to where everything is going to go. It's like a puzzle, right? So hopefully talking to our Commissioner David Fuentes, I'm pretty sure we can get you that contact and he can share with you as to what specific plan Hidalgo County is following in terms of this and how it relates to where we live here in the Precinct 1 area.
Yeah, because we should consider not only the safety and the health, right, of the community, but also the economics.
Well,
If you have an investor, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of possibilities are going to develop now because of what's currently happening. I would think if an investor is going to be looking at the drainage problems, right? Do I want to invest or build where they don't know what to do, they don't handle the drainage problem? My plant or my warehouse is continuously going to be flooded, and then my workers can't come to work because they got to deal with the flooding at home. All those aspects, right? I think it's all connected. We're all connected at the hip somehow.
Oh yeah, and again, I mean, like Mayor said, that there is a plan out there, and I know that the plan has gone. They've been executing it little by little, right? Because and we saw it, with this rainstorm, and again, yeah, it affects everybody. It affects everything that you do. If we're trying to attract business and stuff, they're gonna be like, "Well, let me see, y'all are you're in a flood zone." I was like, "Well, the whole valley is, but I mean, we're working on it."
Yeah.
It's just a matter of now. There's different ordinances and that I guess they're implementing as far as when you build. You need to have an on-site drainage or whatever. If you build a neighborhood, you gotta save quite a bit of land so you can have an on-site,
Right.
retention.
What's our census now? Does somebody know countywide?
That's
Latest census?
close to 1 million, but I don't know what it is.
I know valley-wide, like from Rio Grande City to Bronzeville, we're like at 1.5 million or so.
Okay.
We're close to the million
Yeah.
here in Hidalgo County.
And I think we're still dealing with, talking about now you build a subdivision, even out in the county, you have to meet some standards where 30, 40 years ago you didn't. You just put a street out in the field and build houses and you're done. There was no zoning, there was no nothing. And that was, and out into the field was lower than the street.
Yeah.
So anytime it rains, it's going to flood. And so that's all being retrofitted. And I think that's part of the whole drainage issue is there was nothing at one time. Now it's not like that anymore, although I think there's still some places where you can build pretty freely. But it's, how long does it take to fix that? I call unscrupulous developers who just literally put a gravel road out in the middle of the field and sold half-acre lots. They had to go half-acre, at least the county, several years ago. But they just put half-acre lots on each side, and then when it rains, it all runs into that because that's the low spot. And then they go, well, how come it doesn't drain? Well, it wasn't built to drain. It's the field. It's where it's meant to go, So that I think we're still reeling from that even years and years later.
What time or what year do you think that started happening, Tim? I would say that was in right after 83, the freeze, when all the orange orchards froze. Farmers started developing those properties. I believe that was under the regime of J. Edgar Ruiz, county judge-ish, somewhere around there. And there wasn't too many restrictions on subdivisions. And I think that's why we're still paying for it nowadays.
I think it may go back farther than that. It goes a long way back. And at some point, and I don't know, maybe you guys know better, what year or year-ish that at least it was half-acre lots became a requirement. In the county, you couldn't have a lot smaller than half acre. And that's been probably 30 years ago. I don't remember. I'm just throwing a number out. It's a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, those subdivisions still exist, and they weren't made for water to run off. They were, a house built in the field, and with no consideration for what's a flood zone and what's not. It's just, hey, I'll sell this lot to you for $500. Yeah, put a house on it. Done. down payment,
And we still have to deal with that.
Yeah. And we're dealing with it today.
Yeah, and more expensive to deal with.
And they're being annexed. The city's annexed them. Now you got to deal with it because now they're city problems, and it was a county problem. Now it's a city problem. And when it doesn't drain, it's your fault. Well, wait a minute. Hang on a minute.
Yeah. We're dealing with, back then, they were allowed, septic tank, and now, we have people in the city limits that are still using septic tank,
Right.
and it's like,
Wow, really?
you got to connect. Yeah.
And why is that happening? Why is it?
Choice? No, it was just, back then, like
Kind of grandfathered in almost.
yes, grandfathered in, but now, of course, like here in the city, we're kind of making sure like, hey, if you're going to get into the city, you have to connect to our lines, or, as the city continues to grow, and once you have a connection, a line close by your area, you're going to have to connect.
Okay.
So, because again, now with this, I believe it was a law that passed, or they passed it through Senate, a bill, that we can't annex anymore. They have to be self-annexed.
Really?
Yeah. So, if we wanted to go and
Voluntarily.
they have to voluntarily annex.
Annexation, right?
So what's the pros and the cons of that? How does that affect the city?
Well, we can't get more property in the city so they can pay property tax. So we can have more money
at a cost.
at a cost. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we need to go back and clean up some of the mess or develop.
Right. And so I'm playing devil's advocate because most people, anybody that will listen to the podcast, I'm trying to explain so they can better understand that. Yeah. So how many more years do you have on your term there?
I have 2.5.
2.5.
2.5 years.
Anything you want to announce or anything new coming in with the next couple of years as far as projects are concerned for the city? Developments. I've heard a lot of things out there that are developing, but it's up to you. You have the platform.
Again, it's just we're going to continue focusing in our drainage, and then our streets, of course, stuff that people can see that we're doing, right? And not only that, it's things that are needed. We're going to start focusing on our parks. I'll tell you one thing, since I got elected, a lot of the phone calls were people like, hey, we need lights. We need to practice.
Really?
Because the traveling teams have grown so much. You have all sorts of leagues now. You have Little League. Yeah. Then you have like, all these traveling teams. You have, Taifa. Then you have another, what is it called? Venom. All these little organizations, right?
Right.
So believe it or not, that was the biggest, like, hey, man, you need to put more lights in our parks, and we need more practice facilities. And I was like, hey, man, there's only so much light we can provide. So this time change, I love it because they don't really need lights because they can practice wherever they find an open spot. But we want to also focus our time in our parks as well. Quality of life. And I think that in the next 2.5 years, I've always said this. I'm not politically correct when it comes to things. I say it the way it is, whether you like it or you don't. I'm going to tell you the way it is, and I'm not one that's going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not here to get reelected. I'm here to do a job.
There you go.
My actions should get me reelected. So I'm not here to play favoritism or play politics. No, I'm not. A title doesn't make me. I'm here to to make sure that we do and we continue growing the city of Westaco the right direction, in the right way.
Well, having said that, how would you make a statement currently? Anything new coming in, telling us how it is?
No,
the changes you're going to make.
Well, as far as the changes that we're making, it's really not much. It's just more of we're going to be transparent.
Okay.
A lot of people like to go and boost their cities, right? Like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. Oh, we're all good. Well, I'm telling my staff, no, we need to let our citizens know when there's something that we're not doing right. Let's not paint that pretty picture, because then they're going to expect that pretty picture to show up.
Like Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook picture. Yeah. So I'm telling like, hey, if there's something that's going on in our city, or if we're say that, with our auditor saying like, hey, man, you did this wrong. Well, let's voice that. but we're gonna do it better. There's always, we're gonna improve. That's one thing that I tell, my city manager, our assistant city manager, and the commission, like, hey, we're not gonna paint a pretty picture, just to say like, oh yeah, Wesco, blah blah. I'm like, no. We're gonna point out all the other stuff that we need improvements on. Let's keep it the way it is.
Right.
Let's call it the way it is. Again, it's just being very transparent with everything that we're doing. Very transparent, and that's what we want to do. And like I said, I want to, continue educating our community of how it works. It's kind of like, okay, where's our tax rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to 2000. What was our tax rate in 2000, and what's our tax rate now? A lot of people are out there saying, oh, you need to do this, you need to fix this. Oh, we need improvements here, and we need this. Where's my taxpayer dollar going? Okay, well, let's see where our tax rate was in 2000, and let's see where it's at now. Okay. The way I understood it was, this is the way they put it to me. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. What was the price of gas, eggs, and bread in 2000?
Yes.
And what was the minimum wage at that time? Right. Okay. Well, it was this. Okay. Well, what's the price of eggs, bread, and gas and everything right now? Well, it's a big margin. Eggs
Difference.
and everything else has really gone up. Okay, so you want me to do all these changes, yet we're still making this amount. We're still making minimum wage, trying to make it with the prices now in 2025.
So they expect more with less.
Yes. So that's what we're trying to kind of educate and inform our citizens on. Look, guys, this is what it is.
So bringing in businesses, does that help the city?
Well, of course, you have your sales tax, and your property tax, so we, that's what helps. Look at the McAllens and the Edinburghs. I mean, look at their sales tax. I was talking to Mayor Villalobos there, about a couple of months back, and like, oh yeah, we did this and I did that. And I was like, yeah, thanks a lot, man. I go, but I don't have your sales tax.
So, next 5 years, what is Wesco bringing in as far as businesses?
Next 5 years, I think that you're going to see a different Wesco. I can't say, everything and what's going to go on, but
what can you say?
Look at the last 5 years. So much has changed in the last 5 years.
Yes, it has.
I've got more good restaurants within a mile of the TV station than I've ever had. I love it.
Yes.
Every night I have to go out to eat, Go ahead.
Yeah. No, what my main focus is going to be trying to attract manufacturing companies, because we want to attract business where people are going to get paid good, where they're going to be able to go out and buy a house here.
Okay.
Good paying jobs. You have your manufacturing companies, you have your distributing companies, more on the industrial side of things, right?
Right.
We got glaziers that came in here. Yeah. So, we want we want things like that are going to be able to pay their employees good amount of money so that they can purchase their houses here.
Does somebody humongous like SpaceX and Tesla, Elon Musk in Brownsville, does it affect your communities? Does it bring trickle some sort of benefits to you?
Yeah, like Mayor just said, they have a lot of open land right now, right? If you have the port of Brownsville, we have the port. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes in to that port. We have this open land, and if we can attract a tier 2. Like, they're bringing all this steel, right? If we can go and, hey, we want to have a manufacturer. We'll make the steering wheels for something.
Right.
We're right here. We're the center. That's the stuff that we want to attract, and in our meetings, I tell mayors, like, hey, man, if you guys grow, we grow. If we grow, you guys grow. So that's why it's important that we all are on the same page.
Right. And I think that's the approach now for the Valley, at least. It's not a Westlake was growing. It's not a McAllen is growing. It's a regional economic development approach as to where SpaceX, people from Mid-Couch work at SpaceX. People from Mid-Couch work in all these different places, right? So in return, it does possibly affect economic development.
I work and live here.
Right. So right. So there's different ways. So my challenge has been opportunities for business because of the layout of the city.
Right.
So I know that a lot of my problems can be solved through growth, including the flooding that we're seeing and tax revenue. So I need to grow, find different ways to generate taxes. So we're working on several projects as to land developments. So that's going to create rooftops. That's going to create taxing opportunities, service opportunities. People, and then like they say, I mean, we build it and they will come. As long as I have my workforce here, as long as I have my people, businesses are going to have no choice other than to come to us, Westlake or anywhere else, because the people are here. What's important too is that our people are ready to work with whomever is coming over here. We need a trained workforce. STC, UTRGV, the TSCC, the different colleges that are here, early colleges, are high schools, right? So that's a very important component as to where the value is going to be at least 5 years from now, right? That we focus on the city side, making sure that everything is operating the way it should be, so others can come in and take advantage of what we have, so they can make a better living and opportunities. So,
Yeah. In 5 years, Mayor, what do you see the city of Ed Couch in 5 years?
no, I mean, I see it almost doubling in size. I mean, as Mayor was talking about voluntarily annexation, we're working on a couple of sites that we're going to annex. That's gonna give us opportunity. We see growth right.
Yeah, I've seen the development around here at Delta Oaks Ranch, just across the street there. There's a big community being developed, wound down the road by another mile north of here. So I see it.
A lot of movement on the 1015 side, north and south, north and south on 1015. A little bit going on the 107 east. So that's going to be the area where it's going to start growing now.
You got to check that 1015 area, right?
Oh, it's growing.
Yeah, but what is it? Where does it end going south, and where does it start? That bridge, right? And we're in the talks of to expanding that overweight corridor, down that road. So it opens up a lot. I know there's a lot of construction going on. No one wants to go there right now. But once all that is fixed, we have to take advantage of all that stuff. And that's why I say it's important that we're all together, progreso, with that bridge. Donna is just working on their international bridge, but that entryway is all connected to us.
I have my suspicions. Why is all that construction right there on 1015? Something going on there? Development in that area, perhaps?
That's TxDOT. That's TxDOT.
Okay, we'll keep it under wraps. That's all I'm saying. I heard things. I don't know. And I'm hoping for the best, because it's for the best of the whole community.
Yeah.
So, yes.
There's a street widening project there on south of 1015 leading over here. So exactly what Mayor is saying. We're setting it up west to where this corridor is going to be busy. It's going to be busy. It's going to be an attraction to businesses and
it's like you said, Mayor, that you build it and they will come. And I feel that, my perspective, you need the infrastructure, and part of that infrastructure is the drainage. You need the drainage, you need the water, you need the utilities and all that. Right. If you don't have that, an investor is going to shy away. He's going to go where all that infrastructure is at.
Yeah. And, moving forward, I think both of our cities that's one thing that we're going to be focusing on. And, there's a lot of good things that are going to happen down that 1015.
Great. I have a question for you, Mr. Smith. Has an investor ever approached and ask you, hey, what's the weather like, 5 years, 10 years before we develop or invest or anything related to that? Have they ever used you as a resource for investment purposes?
Absolutely. Not so much recently, because the data is so readily available. But if you go back 20 years, it was relatively common because they knew the data was always out there, but people didn't know where to find it. Now it's the internet. Just go to the internet. You can find whatever you want. But that was not uncommon prior to the internet. Got to roll.
That's been a minute.
I hate to say that out loud, but yeah, but it was a relatively common thing,
Wow.
you know, and
I didn't know that.
it's not so much anymore because people can get it, and there's consulting meteorologists who get paid to do that. They call me, they don't pay me, they just call me, you know. But so I refer them, if it's something really deep, I refer them to them. I think, guys, we're in a very unique time because we're talking about the development and everything, but with the tariffs that are being implemented, and you know, you can build stuff cheaper in Mexico or in China right now, but with those tariffs, you might be able to build it cheaper in the valley because our cost of doing business is lower here than most of the country. And I think it could create a real unique opportunity for the valley, for South Texas in general, because our labor force is good. It's affordable. You know, it's not union necessarily, which means it's a lot cheaper than Detroit, you know. Then you can build those steering wheels in Ed Couch a lot cheaper than you can build it in Detroit. And with the tariffs, it might be an equalizer that makes it so that it's worthwhile.
Well, and that's what I meant when I said that, just because of what's going on nationwide, you know, that, and I'm assuming that's why Trump is doing all that, because he wants more American-made products, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what better than, you know, here in the middle of that, I mean, in South Texas, closer to, we're right close to the border, you know, and, you know, it's just that we just need to provide the manpower. And that's where STC comes in. That's where the UTRGVs, Texas A&M, you know, all these areas come in and play and are able to, you know, get our manpower ready. You know?
Well, they're training people for SpaceX now. They're doing exactly that. They look at what the workforce demands and they create it. So I took your question sideways. Sorry.
No. Well, what about that SpaceX? Before they came, did they reach out to you and look at the weather? Because that's a humongous project.
It is. No, they've got their own people.
Really?
In fact, they've got one meteorologist who's in charge of all their launches. He's a good friend now.
Wow.
He lives out there. But he comes to that conference on the island most years, and his name's Phil, and he's just a terrific guy. But one of the smartest people I know too. Wow. So they had him doing the work for him. But he's the guy that has to do the forecast for every launch here, Florida, California, wherever.
So he's on call 24/7, I would imagine.
Pretty much. Now, you know, they launch not every day, but they launch a lot between all their locations. So it's what he does.
Is he the main one for all of SpaceX?
He's the only one for all of SpaceX.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And he lives here.
He lives at Boca Chica, yeah. He built a house out there in the new subdivision out there that's right next to the launch pad, well, next to the factory.
So I imagine he's got a whole bunch of high-tech equipment out there and just the best of the best, I would think. Right?
He's got good stuff. You know, last time I talked to him, he was excited because he got another piece of equipment pushed through the budget. And the budget's pretty open as long as if you can justify it. Because Elon just write the check. Yeah, okay, do it, you know. But you do have to justify. With Elon, you got to justify everything. Of course, that if you can justify it, the money's there.
Right.
And so he does. And there you have it. But he lives out there.
Do you all make any type of collaboration, like in weather, as far as weather?
I mean, not on launches. He's on his own for that. And
no, I'm saying in general when he says, "Hey, Tim, did you hear? I think there's a storm coming."
Oh, sure. We talk. And,
okay.
and it's the weather industry is a small industry. There's not,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people in it, but compared to most industries, it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
So we all know each other, and he knows his stuff. He really does. He worked at the Hurricane Center for a number of years, and so he knows his. You know, so I'm more likely to call him than he is to call me. I think because he's good. He's very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Have you been out there to SpaceX, the base with him?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Several times, and we go out. I go out there every chance I get just to see what's new. Because every time you go, it's new. Right. There's something. They're building so fast that there's something new every time. So yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy those launches. I go every time that I can, and I admire that.
Yep. Me too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate some people feel differently about it, but I'm more pro for it. I feel it's great for our economy, great for our location, our community, everything that is bringing to it. He could have, perhaps built it anywhere else in the world, but he brought it here to the Rio Grande Valley.
Well, 2,000 high-paying jobs. All those jobs pay well. It's created a shortage of welders over here. You need a welder in Westlaco. It's hard to find one because they're making big money out there or at the LNG plant, one or the other.
Yeah,
making big bucks out there.
But not only that, I mean, not only high-paying jobs, those are super awesome jobs with high tech.
Yeah, and then the aside from that is what it's creating in tourism. Try to get off the island after a launch.
Yeah,
it takes you 4 or 5 hours because everybody's trying to leave the island, and you go to dinner first. The island will say, then leave.
Yeah, no, and I know that even when we go to these conferences, right? Like in Vegas, where it's EDCs and cities trying to attract business. Hey man, we all use SpaceX. We got SpaceX right here, So I mean, it's something that we use. When we use, like I said, it's a regionalism now. And it's kind of just not. We're not going out there saying, yes, I'm City of Westico, but we have all this, radius. We have SpaceX. 35 miles away, we have McAllen. 20 miles away. So if you put it all together, it's like I said, there's a population of 1.5 million instead of saying, well, our population is 45 to 50. You say 1.5 million
Regional.
They're going to be like, oh, okay. Well,
that's your workforce. I mean, that really is your workforce.
Yeah.
The people don't mind commuting 20, 30 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you go to these bigger cities, driving 30, 45 minutes is like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Us, it's kind of like, oh man, we're going to have to drive 45 minutes, but it's different in different areas,
Yeah. Mr. Smith, I've seen you sometimes make people for fishermen and that it's good for fish and for fishing, etc. Do you do that now for when there's going to be a launch? Hey, it's going to be a good launch. It's going to be good weather. Kind of, keep everybody in the loop for all that.
We do a launch forecast. We build graphics that show it, and I take pictures that I've taken when I've been out there and video that I've taken when I've been to all the launches too. And so we've got a lot of good pictures, a lot of good video, and of course we get teams that record all that as well. So yeah, we would do a launch forecast every time there's going to probably be a launch. We say probably because there's not. I remember when they first announced they were coming. This has been more than 10 years ago now. We went to Florida. One of our photojournalists and I went to Cape Canaveral to talk about the impact of space launches on the community. Mm-hmm. We talked about the economic impact, the ecologic, the environmental impact, and the noise, everything. We talked about all of that. And we went there for a launch of the Falcon 9 and got there and did all the stories. And the launch is scheduled for the next morning, and they postponed it to the next day. So I called back to the office. I got to stay one more day. Said, okay, that's fine. And that was a Saturday. We rescheduled for Saturday. Well, Friday afternoon, they said, it's going to be Monday. Wow. They said, okay, Monday's your last chance. Stay till Monday. So we went to Disney World. We had 2 days of all that. We had 2 days to kill, and then came back and they canceled Monday as well. So we flew home and never saw launch. But we were able to do the stories and talk about the economic, environmental, and the noise impact. And they're just part of life there. And it's becoming part of life. Port Isabel, South Padre Island.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I wish more people would pay attention to that, to the benefit that we're having holistically in the whole region.
Yeah.
To that, but.
And it impacts everybody, and when it's always amazing when you do a launch, when we're out there for a launch. I mean, there's rare if you find somebody in Port Isabel that doesn't know there's going to be a launch. It's very well published, really in the whole valley, but especially out there. Every once in a while you see a post on Facebook. Anybody know what that noise was a little while ago? It's like, well, yeah, how did you rocket? Yeah, how did you miss that? But even into Brownsville, same kind of thing, because you see it, you hear it. It's pretty phenomenal. Phenomenal. So
it's amazing to also think, wrap your head around it that once they land in Mars, it's going to come from the valley.
Yeah.
Wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
To another planet.
One planet to another from here.
Yeah. Some of the last people that are probably going to touch it, are workers, people who live in the valley.
Yeah.
And to me personally, it's like, wow. Right?
No, it's SpaceX has really put the valley in the map.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard it mentioned many times every time when Elon Musk is on the news and they'll talk about Starbase and they'll bring in the valley and Brownsville and so forth. And it's, yeah. But going back to, you mentioned, Tim, the tariffs and you as well, Mayor, both of the mayors. Do you find it challenging to perhaps explain it to the communities that the benefits of a tariff, of the possibilities it's going to bring more jobs, the possibility of bringing more industry to the region? I mean, do you find that challenging? Or do you feel, or people get it like, tariffs, it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I mean, we don't know the impact of what a tariff's going to really do to the valley yet. Yeah, we're just assuming that, it opens up possibilities for them to come and want to be here in the Mid-Valley area or in the Valley period, right? So, I mean, when they ask, I mean, it's not something I open up a conversation about, or hey, this is going to happen, because we just don't know. we're just hoping that we just know that it can benefit us, and that's going to be our way to saying, hey man, well, come over here, we're right here. But I mean, no, I mean, and then being that, we hold a nonpartisan, position, so we don't really have to say, oh, red or blue. We can say green. We can say green because we're going to go wherever, whoever brings money to our city.
Right.
But no, I've never gotten into those details with anybody or anything like that.
So it's not a challenge. That's good.
It's not a challenge.
No,
Okay, great.
But there's stuff behind it too. For example, we just bought two brand new PD unit cars for a police department, but we're waiting on some parts that are not here yet for the sirens and the gauges and all that stuff, that they're coming from another country. Right. So sometimes we have to go through those obstacles. And like Mary was saying too, the materials and the supplies that we need to treat water, to do anything, keep rising for whatever. Right. So now trying to keep tabs on that means maybe at times they need to raise prices on the water rates or the tax, the effective tax rate goes up. But we're just trying to catch up. Right. So sometimes maneuvers like the tariff brings other obstacles for us that we're not anticipating, right? So now we need to figure out how am I going to pay for that now?
Right. Interesting. Well, I do have a question, redirecting the conversation back to the flooding in our communities. Do you all feel that perhaps that's a good suggestion, a point of origin to kind of maybe dust off where they left off? If somebody else wants to join in and open up conversation as far as feasibility studies being done on a grander scale and hiring, contracting a Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers or somebody to look at, and the feasibility of, I don't know, just entertaining the ideas, aqueducts, like the massive ones they have out there in California, even out there in Europe, I see it on YouTube, et cetera. And just look into it and at least trying to resolve the situation and look at it, and then just not, grin and bear it every time there's a flooding. Here we go again. Another, whatever it costs in damages, another 10 million and another 4 million, another 3 million. And it's adding up year after year after year. So we could perhaps compare, well, if we did a feasibility study and came up with a possible solution, right? And compare, right? And now we would have perhaps the problem resolved 5 years, a 10-year plan. But the project, I would suggest you got to make it out there into a 50-year minimum, maybe 100 year. I don't know, right? But, it's interesting, how the public, I feel, would be interested in perhaps entertaining and discussing these things. They get affected.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's ever stopped getting, no one's ever, they haven't stopped trying to find the solutions, right? It's ongoing and it will continue to be ongoing. When it comes to drainage, because like I said, everyone wants to focus on our drainage because that's the biggest thing. But, there's always, we're always open to figure out better ways to do what we got to do to make sure that this never happens again. Right. Because one house underwater is one too many. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to see that. So, again, I think we're always going to have those talks and figure out what we can do to be better. But, again, it's just,
But I'm curious, Mayor, when these projects, the current projects to adapt to the flooding, let's say there's earmarked, let's pick a number, $5 million. So we say, okay, this is the project that we can afford, the $5 million project. Mm-hmm. It's not a long-term solution, rather a temporary patch to the now problem, or, to adapt to the current somewhat. That's my question that I would want answered. Is because are these projects, we have X amount of dollars and this is what we can afford to do and this is how much we're going to do. But compared to a very long-term solution, a 50-year plan for all future growth.
There is one. So when they went for a bond election, they had a number in mind, right? I forget what number we voted for. So there was a number in mind based on the amount of work that needed to be done to make a dent into this. So I know that there was projects done here in Edcouch, in Progreso, in Donna, in Westlaco, in most of Hidalgo County, in forms of detention ponds in forms of infrastructure lines that were added, those cement boxes. So there was an estimate done based on a study. So I know Commissioner Fuentes has it. I know others. I know Army Corps engineer was here. I know there's been engineers on play here, trying to come up with a solution. And there was a price tag to it. That's what went out to the public to vote on the bond. It takes time. You can't do everything in one year. So strategically, they decided as to what areas they were going to look at. Currently, we're working 1 year in Ed County, and that one was through HUD. We're going to do a detention pond behind one of our campuses. So that's going to alleviate some of this flooding to the north side of the city, right? So all those have already been approved by some engineers as to part of the master plan that they have for at least for Hidalgo County. So there is one.
Okay.
We'll get Dr. Cecine and
So how does a regular person get access? Is this public access information and get updated on it? Where do we go?
I'll get you that. But I'm pretty sure that David Fuentes has it. We voted for it. All the residents of Hidalgo County voted for that bond. I think it was like an $80 million bond. It was a good change that we voted for.
But I think the important thing is that these aren't temporary stopgap measures. These are just a piece of the puzzle. You know, if we dig a cut through this table right here, that'll drain this area right here. And that's always going to be there. But now we need to drain this area. Well, we'll connect this to that one, and everything will connect and eventually. But I think the idea, is to bring in an Elon Musk type engineer, where money's no object, pie in the sky, just throw it out there. What would it cost to solve all the problems, and how long would it take? And I think I think there's absolutely a plan in place to do that already, and it's happening. But it's budget conscious because we don't have unlimited funds. What if I think it'd be interesting if there's an Elon Musk type engineer who just came in and said, money's no object. Here's how I would do it. And then, then work back from that now. Okay, money is an object. How can we pare that back down to what's affordable? But what's being done? It is being worked on. We have a story on the news once a month probably about some canal that's being widened or deepened or something. I mean, it's happening all the time. And you drive through the county, you see it. It is happening, but it's a slow process. It's a very slow process. And, we could speed it up and get it done next year. That'd be nice. But again, it's only money and getting that funding that's approved. Yeah.
And like Mary was saying, I mean, we've seen it firsthand as to how it's really benefiting our communities.
Yeah.
Starting from 2017 to now. Yes, water does rise. But how long is it taking for it to recede? I mean, you're seeing that, and it all starts as to how the rain fell, right? So you can see how it's working. We're not where we need to be yet, but it's working. The video you showed us, some of those answers are continued development. We develop those lands, and the water should start to flow to where it needs to go, like Tim was saying.
Okay. Because it's not going to stop.
Oh, no. It's like,
Mr. Smith, if anything, it's going to increase.
It's not going to stop. We know that. So it's just a matter of planning ahead and doing what we're doing. It's already there, but if we could accelerate it, make it better, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And we don't want the rain to stop either.
No.
We need rain.
We don't need the faucet all.
We need rain. We just need to figure out how to reclaim, how to keep our property safe, and finding ways to make the water flow to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust me. My dad was all excited about it. I was like, man, really? I'm not. My dad's a farmer, so he had just planted, or he had some grain. He was like, man, my crop is so green. I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people out here that didn't want this much rain.
At whose expense? Yeah.
Yeah. How many years have you been doing the weather now, Mr. Smith?
43.
43 years.
So def.
So what year did you start?
1981.
81. Here in Wesco?
Uh-huh. Yep. Christmas Eve of 1981.
Is that right?
Yep. So it's been a long run. But it's been fun. Not going anywhere until they throw me out, until you guys vote me out, if you will. So when I'll be there, they keep making memes. I guess that's
so you're staying on board till
foreseeable future. Yeah.
That's great.
Just tried to work a little less, but still there.
So how much has it changed since 1981?
The weather industry or the weather?
No, I guess in general, how much has the valley in your eyes changed?
Oh, dramatically. We joked earlier about how, 43 years ago, there were, I think, 3 restaurants within a mile of the station. Now there's 3 within walking distance. There's and so Weslaco's changed dramatically, but the valley's changed dramatically.
So it's always been based in Weslaco.
Yeah, the station's been in Weslaco since 1954, I believe, when it was put on the air originally, and it's been there ever since. And we were at the current location since, oh gosh, when did we move from downtown? We used to be downtown, but that was before I got here.
Okay.
And then we moved out to the expressway.
Did it flood in Beulah, or has it ever flooded?
I don't think it was there yet in Beulah. I don't think it was in that location yet. We've had water close, but not inside the building. Yeah, there was one of the floods, and I'm going to have to wrap up my story because I have a newscast to do in a few minutes. But so I'm going to have to get back there. But during one of the floods, 2017, whatever year it was, couldn't get to the station because the frontage road was flooded. And I remember Alan Shoemaker, who was one of our meteorologists at the time, drove past the station on the expressway and then backed down the on-ramp and got as far down the on-ramp as he could get until he touched the water.
Wow.
And then parked his car and put on his hip waders and walked into the station from there. And there's an on-ramp right in front of the station. So it wasn't a long walk, but he found a way to get there, and that's somewhat normal. People, it's some people say, well, I can't get there, I'll stay home, but not Alan. Alan gets there no matter.
Well, before you leave, Mr. Smith, one last question.
Sure.
5 years, Eyewitness News or Channel 5, Tim Smith, tell us where do you see 5 years from now?
I hope to be on the beach with my feet propped up 5 years from now. I'm going to be here a while, but I don't know if it'll be 5 years or not. Retirement's out there in the not too distant future, but no definite plans yet. So,
how about any changes for the channel?
Well,
5 years.
Times are changing. Like I said, there's no appointment viewing anymore. People don't tune in. Don't sit down in front of their TV at 6 o'clock anymore like they used to. And I think as we age out, the people who do that are aging out.
Yeah.
It's got to change, and it's all going to your cell phone. It's all going to whatever the next technology is, whatever the next social media is. It's going to be different. It's going to be, on-demand news anywhere you want it, anytime you want it, any way you want it. And we may be doing 24-hour news streaming to an app, all the time, 24/7. That could be not that far down the road.
So do you see perhaps in the future that it wouldn't be broadcast? It would just be through the internet streaming? Is that coming? I
think it could come to that at some point. I mean, the broadcast waves are still out there, and they're the public's waves. They belong to the people. We broadcast in the public interest. FCC is very strict about what we must do and what we can't do, and because of that, there's things we have to do right now. As that appointment viewing goes away, those broadcast waves could be turned over to something else. It could be turned over to the city. Now the city has its own TV station to broadcast, but I'm not sure how you'd use it because you've got social media too. So I don't know. I don't know where it's headed. It may be turned over to cell phone, frequencies. Who knows? But
yeah, it's hard to tell the future. Yeah, but it's changing for sure.
Yeah. So but I think it's changed dramatically in the last 5 years, and I think it'll change dramatically in the next 5. I don't know that there'll still be 6 and 10 o'clock newscasts like we know it now.
Right.
I just ride it as long as I can, and then when it's done, I'm done, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here today. It's been great, very informative. I think we've answered a lot of questions that I think a lot of the community have been wondering, and they want answers. So at least we've opened up discussion, and let me thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, man.
Mayor.
Sir, thank you.
Mayor, thank you very much.